Aggro Demon Hunter, definitely not one of the top decks in the current meta, but it is good enough to be able to take games off of the top decks. And so I'm thinking that we'll be able to catch our opponents just a little bit by surprise. This deck is going to move significantly faster than the more relic-based Fell Demon Hunter. And so we could actually sneak some wins, and I do think it also has some favorable matchups against some of the more popular decks. So taking a quick look at the list before we get going, you're going to notice that the curve is very low and the cards are very cheap. So general game plan, we want all damage going face. It's going to be very rare that we're going to trade for minions on the board unless they have taunt, because we just don't want to miss any face damage. And then the other important thing to keep in mind is we just want to play cards as quickly as possible. And so when I say that, the reason why is because due to the magnifying glaives, as well as the Sightless Magistrate, we're going to have lots of card draw. More cards equals more damage face equals a win versus a loss. So, and when I say that, a good example of that is we're not necessarily going to wait until turn 5 to play our Furies when they upgrade. Playing this before turn 5 is going to be perfectly acceptable. It's only a 1 damage difference, but it gets a card out of our hand to be able to draw additional firepower. And with that, we're headed out to the top 100 ladder. Right off the bat, we're against a priest. We would expect this to be a shadow priest. Probably not really going to change the cards that we're looking for in the mulligan. We don't want predation or multi-strike. Battle-worn Vanguard is going to be a keep, though. Ideally, we'd like to hit a Dread Prison Glaive here for sure. Any kind of one-drop would actually be much appreciated. And so you can see here, we do hit a Dread Prison Glaive. And so the interesting thing here is we're going to have to select what card we want to put back into our deck, which is likely just going to be the Trog here. So I'm going to go ahead and weapon up. And then actually, we can play Trog on 1, Bibliomite on 2, shuffle back into our deck whatever our next top deck is, and then on 3 we can go Dread Prison Glaive with the Battle-worn Vanguard. The Trog here can potentially shut down our opponent from using coin. So if we were going second, I would have gone weapon first and just planned on shuffling this back into the deck. But because we're going first, and we know that a lot of times our Shadow Priest opponent on turn 2 likes to go maybe coin, Undying Allies, Haunting Nightmare, this is going to be really good to be able to prevent that. And Predation, not necessarily a card that we want in our hand anyway. So we're just going to put the Predation back in our deck. We're going to punch face. Next turn, we're just going to play our weapon as well as this minion. Keeping in mind, once our opponent gets to 5 mana, if an undead has died on the previous turn, they're going to be able to clear the board with Shadow Word Undeath. So we really want to be able to get as much damage as we possibly can here in the early game. Incorporeal Corporal, Coin, Whispers of the Deep could be really good for our opponent, but that would also give us an additional copy of the Iron Deep Trog here. So, question is, how do we actually want to handle this? I mean, we can go Glaive. We could just go Glaive, Fury, Hero Power, take a trade with the Trog and hit. That's still going to allow us to push 10 face this turn. And I think I like that. It's fine if we lose the Trog. It almost guarantees that this is going to be able to hit face again. Yeah, I think I like this play the best. And you can see here again, as I mentioned kind of in the intro here, we're not going to be holding our Fury. We just want to go ahead and play it. Potentially, if we top deck a Sightless Magistrate, we just want to play that and draw cards. If not, we'll be playing the Battle-worn Vanguard and we'll get some extra minions on the board. Feels like the 5/4 should be able to attack again, unless our opponent has like second Corporal and a Whispers of the Deep. Some potential that our opponent could maybe have, yeah, something like this. If they coin Whispers of the Deep, it's going to be pretty bad for us here. And they actually have it, so that's pretty unfortunate. And so we're just going to play everything that we have, and then I can go ahead and trade for this guy. It's going to get us some minions on the board here. Our opponent's not going to be able to remove all of this, and we still get the damage face, thanks to the Dread Prison Glaive. So now we're going to be at the mercy of our deck. We really need to hit one of these card draw cards. If that's our top deck, we want to make sure that we just go ahead and play it. We'll overwrite this weapon. We'll drop this on the board, but we need more cards in hand so that we can have damage to be able to finish off our opponent. Keeping in mind as well that our opponent is on the defensive now. So we're only really going to be getting chip damage from our board at this particular point. And they could even have like a Mind Seer here. Again, all of our damage is going face. We really just need to draw some cards at this point. And even a Kurtrus wouldn't necessarily be a bad top deck. It's just not playable. We need something playable. And then Kurtrus on 6 would also be acceptable. But again, just really hoping for card draw. We'd even accept something like a Chaos Strike. This actually feels like a misplay by our opponent. They actually just gave us a lot of additional damage. And I don't think they're going to be killing us from 22 here. But it's also possible that we're not going to be killing them either. If they have Shadow Word Undeath, they don't even need to activate it. It just clears the board. All this damage goes face, and it's probably enough to win them the game unless we top deck exactly the Kurtrus. If they don't have Shadow Word Undeath, then this actually ends up being a really bad play for them. It gives us a lot of extra damage. And they're kind of in a position where they're going to have to make trades here. Like, this is just really bad for them to have on the board. It allows us to do so much more damage. You can see the trades are exactly what they're doing. The Chaos Strike is going to be good for us here. We get to draw an additional card. And a Magnifying Glaive as well. The question is, we kind of need to count our damage here. That's 6. It's actually just lethal, right? 6, 8, 10, 11. So I believe this is exact lethal. Our opponent did misplay just because of having this guy on the board right here. But we are able to get there. And again, as I said earlier, this Aggro Demon Hunter, not the strongest deck in the meta, but we can take games off of the stronger decks. Hey, back in for another game. You can see another priest, likely another Shadow Priest. These priest donkeys seeming to be everywhere. I'm going to keep the weapon, and I think I want to toss the rest of this stuff. We know our opponent. We know basically exactly what they're playing, assuming it is Shadow Priest. I just don't know that we necessarily want to keep something like a Fell Barrage. I'm going to toss all of this. Definitely we're keeping the Dread Prison Glaive, and would like to see really some minions, I think, also coming out of this as well. So a pretty interesting hand here as far as how we want to play the coin in this particular matchup. We definitely want to be able to get down the Bibliomite, and we want to be able to empty our hand out as much as possible. For when we play the Magistrate. The question is, do we want to get this down on turn 3? Or do we want to get it down on turn 4? I think the answer is turn 3, so it's going to be Glaive into Bibliomite into coin out the Magistrate. And I believe that's what I'm going to do. That's going to be our tentative plan. This is kind of an interesting spot to be in, and I haven't experienced this too much, so I'm really trying to think through exactly what it is I want to be able to do here. And at this point, I think I actually just want to get the honor kill on this. I don't want to run the risk of a Whispers of the Deep. You can see right here, they've kept a card, so we'll still be able to deal 5 damage face. We are going to be shuffling something back into our deck. We can actually just use the coin here, I think. Shuffle these two guys. We'll play our top deck on turn 3. We're going to have to coin out the hero power, but that's going to be just fine. So this is exactly what we're doing. We know we need to coin out the hero power, so we put back the Slither Spear. Then we are going to dispose of evidence. We're going to put back the Trog, and then we are going to coin the hero power, and we're going to take our honor kill here, and that's going to send 5 damage into our opponent's face. So we do have a 5/4 on board. Hoping we don't see a repeat of last game with another Corporal coming down. And we don't see that. And Multi-Strike is a really great top deck. It's playable now. It lets us hit here, and then I'm going to make sure that I hero power, get some additional damage face. And then you can see our opponent is already down to 13. They have nothing on board, and we're getting ready to refill our hand with a lot of cards by dropping this on turn 4. So this is kind of like the textbook game of exactly what you would want to see happening. Really just hoping that we can overwhelm our opponent. Bonecaller is going to be good for our opponent, but it doesn't change our play at all. And you can see here we hit some additional card draw, as well as some additional cheap minions. I'm going to go ahead and take this trade, and we'll pass it back to our opponent. So they are going to get a trade with this. Potentially they can clear our board just with the silence, but we're starting to have enough damage on the board that we're just going to be killing our opponents anyway. So at this point, it's really just about maximizing the amount of damage going into our opponent's face. That's going to be a good top deck. So we can just play the Magnifying Glaive, and I can actually just punch into the 4-3, I think, and Fell Barrage. That's going to set our opponent to 9. We would have 6-7. The only issue might be, can we die if we go to 14? I don't think so. Our opponent doesn't have minions to target with Mind Seer. It just feels like there's a lot of stuff they're not going to have. Could just set him to 10, play it a little bit safer by playing the Fell Barrage. But I think going for maximum damage here is going to be the way to go. We just want to continue to set our opponent lower and lower. Next turn, we're going to have the Kurtrus Demon Render. We should be able to clear our opponent's side of the board and hit face at least for 3.
Run as fast as you can.
And you can see we actually just top deck lethal here. So that is going to do it for the game. That's also going to do it for the video. I'm Uncorrupt. Thank you for watching, and absolutely good luck out on the ladder.